and have it delivered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
2020 meeting. We have come back from a 15-minute recess and are about to embark on a discussion regarding CARES allocation to small businesses and the EDC, their program to implement that distribution. So, Mr. Thomas, if that's all right, I think Council, Mr. Thomas sent out some information regarding the grant. Have you both seen that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Hughes. So, sent out yesterday from the EDC is a CARES grant agreement. And the agreement is a pass-through grant not to exceed $157,000. So this is funded from the original pot of CARES money that the county received. So of that $943,000 odd dollars, $157,000 of that is allocated to this program, and that decision was through council direction to provide funds to the community specifically for small businesses. And so the EDC has put together this grant proposal, and what it does are a few things. One, again, it's aimed at small business recovery. It is aimed particularly to those businesses who have not received other grant funding, such as the Paycheck Protection Program or the LIDL program through the feds. The focus is on employers that have no more than 10 full-time employees, and it's intended to cover costs associated with testing, PPE supply, and implementation costs. So setting up your business with different barriers or markings for people to stand on, rent and utilities are all eligible expenses. I will note that in Exhibit A, there is a list of eligible expenditures that I just went over, and then there's a list of things that are not eligible, including such items as payroll, bills for taxes or legal fees, travel, meals, lodging, or transportation. Those are ineligible costs. The performance period of the grant, it would be somewhat retroactive. So it covers a period of March 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2020. So a fairly small window. Obviously, we're already into August. So on our behalf, so the county's role is simply providing the funds, and then EDC would really run the program. So they would create the documents, and you can see there's attached to the body here are several exhibits, which include the grant certifications, as well as the other, in Exhibit C, some of the FAQs, and then the other submittal requirements for the program participants. So really, EDC would do all the work on this. They would create the documents. They would review the applications. They would convene a committee to review and score them and award them, and then get other documentation, as I mentioned, to verify eligibility for the program. A very small amount, $7,850, $7,850, would be retained by EDC to help cover their administrative costs for stewarding the grant program. So again, it's a grant program aimed at small businesses who have not received other federal funds and have less than 10 full-time equivalent employees. So that's the agreement that was provided to us yesterday by the EDC.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Watson?
Yeah, just for clarification, Mike, so that the EDC will make the grant decisions?
Yes.
And
the way I read it. Yeah.
Yes, and they are going to create a advisory committee to help review that. Or do we have a representative on that committee?
Mr. Watson, it doesn't say that the county has representation on the committee.
Okay. Maybe we can make that request.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is the auditor.
Hello, Eileen.
Good morning. It is my understanding that we do have a representative on the committee, that Peter Harrison, who is acting in the grants area for us temporarily, will be representing the county primarily to ensure that requirements of the grant are met. That was the request of Victoria Compton, that we have somebody there to do that.
Thank you, Eileen.
That's not expressed in the written materials, but it's good to know that your temporary employee was assigned that.
Cool.
All right, Mr. Stevens?
Mike, you said only till August 2020. We're in the middle of August.
I know. Yeah, I'm just reading the grant thing. So I think that would have to be revisited and I haven't talked with Victoria about that, but, you know, being that it's August 11th, I'm not sure. I'd want to verify with Victoria that they'd be set up to do it that fast, or that needs to be bumped out another month or so.
I mean, you know, the state's put on the CARES stuff till October 31st. So.
All right. Well, I'll.
I don't know why I just don't know why it's cutting off so early.
I'll follow up with Victoria on that. Okay.
Am I hearable? Should I talk?
Hi, Victoria.
Oh, hi,
Hi.
Victoria.
Okay, good. Is it okay to talk?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Hughes. Victoria Compton from the San Juan County Economic Development Council. Just a couple of things. Yes, thank you, Mylene. We are set up with a committee member from the county. Because we are asking for receipts in advance, we can make the cutoff any time. It's for expenses going back to March 1st, so we can certainly extend it, or we can do a rapid rollout, rapid close to get people money faster. So it's really kind of up to the county on how fast you want to turn this around. But because we're requiring receipts to be in compliance with kind of federal accounting standards, we are able to roll it out fast, or we can slow it down. So just maybe Mike and I can talk about that later.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Victor, I just want to really appreciate you and Mike working on this and getting this turned around quickly, and let's get the process going so we can help the community. I don't have any other questions. Anything else from council?
Not for me.
Not for me.
Thank you very much. Our businesses are going to be fabulously helped by this, and so thank you for rolling this out to the community. We're glad to help out.
All right. Thank you both, Mike and Victoria. Our next item is discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Should we approve this and authorize Mr. Thomas to execute and manage?
We can. I thought we already did, and we just we were requested to come back in front of council and see how it looked. But we can. I'll entertain a motion if you'd like.
Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, I don't remember prior authorization, so I guess for clarity, it would be great to make a motion as Mr. Watson suggests.
Okay. So I'll move that we approve the San Juan County Economic Development Council CARES Grant Agreement as drafted, and authorize Mr. Thomas to make minor modifications and to execute it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the San Juan County Economic Development Grant CARES Grant Agreement and application, and to allow the county manager an opportunity to wrap up with the EDC final document and process. Is there any other questions? Without seeing all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you very much. Mr. Watson, thank you for the vote request.
Yep.
Our next issue is a discussion, an ordinance regarding second budget amendment for 2020, second touch. Public hearing scheduled for next Tuesday, August 18th, with Mylene Henley, auditor. Mylene.
Good morning again. I actually don't have a lot to say today. I was hoping to have all of the documents ready for discussion to adopt next week. I believe we will probably open the public hearing next week and push it to the following week. There's a lot of detail. There's a lot of change in this budget amendment. A lot of line items are effective. One of the changes that I am making now is spreading the savings from the furloughs to all the departments, so every department can see what their actual budget will be after we make this change. In addition, I'm putting those furlough savings into the other funds where we had never actually calculated them. And I am reconciling all the changes in one fund that affects other funds. Anyway, it's a lot of work. It's not finished yet. I did send you some halfway documents. Current expenses largely finished. And as you can see, the ending cash position from the last time we discussed has not changed a lot. That's good because that means we estimated fairly well this furlough savings for the fund. There have been a few other changes incorporated, but it's not really ready for prime time yet. Do any of you have questions?
Mr. Watson?
No questions at this time, since she basically said we got preliminary.
It's not finished.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it will be finished next week.
Mr. Stevens?
No, I don't have any questions.
Nor do I. Look forward to the finalized document that we can review for the public hearing that will potentially be moved to the 25th, or at least continued. All right, Mr. Thomas, do you have any questions or comments?
No, at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next discussion item is a briefing on the marijuana regulations. The public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, August 25th with Erica Shook, Director of Community Development, and Adam Zach, Planner 3. Erica, are you on the line? Adam?
I'm here. This is Adam. Yeah. So can you all see my screen there?
Not yet.
Okay. So today I'll brief you on the Planning Commission's recommended draft ordinance adopting new marijuana production and processing regulations. When the council set the public hearing for this for August 25th, you asked for a refresher. It's been a couple of months since you've seen the proposed regulations. So we'll go through kind of what's being proposed and what's going to change. And again, that's in advance of the public hearing in 2 weeks. As you know, the county has a moratorium on new permits for marijuana production and processing operations. That's been in place since April 2019. The moratorium was enacted to allow the county time to adopt new performance standards for marijuana production and processing. It was last renewed in March of this year, and the moratorium will need to be extended if we don't adopt new regulations by the end of September, by the 24th of September. But we're on track to adopt those regulations before the moratorium expires. The draft ordinance will amend San Juan County Code 1820-130, which is the definitions, 1830-030 and 1830-040. Those are our land use tables. 1830-460, which is the land use table for East Sound, and add new sections for the performance standards. Section 1 amends the definitions for marijuana, marijuana processor, and marijuana producer. These are the same definitions from the state law, and this section really clarifies what constitutes the use and which regulations will apply. A marijuana processor is a person licensed by the state to process and package marijuana into usable products. And a producer is somebody licensed by the state to grow and sell marijuana at wholesale to those processors and other producers. Section 2 of the proposed ordinance amends 1830-030, the land use table, for activity center land use designations. This table establishes what land use designations allow production and processing within activity centers, such as West Sound on Orcas or Island Center on Lopez and Orcas. The proposed changes differentiate between the 3 tiers of production and processing. And these are the same 3 tiers that are used in the state licensing for marijuana production and processing. For reference, Tier 1 is less than 2,000 square feet of grow canopy. Tier 2 is between 2,000 and 10,000 square feet of grow canopy. And then Tier 3 is the largest at 10,000 up to 30,000 square feet. Under the proposed changes, Tiers 1 and 2 would be allowed by conditional use permit in Village Industrial and Hamlet Industrial and the Island Center land use designations. There are no lands currently designated Village Industrial in the county, but if one were to be designated, this would apply there. The only Hamlet Industrial areas in the county are located in the Deer Harbor Hamlet. Those are Deer Harbor Hamlet 1 and 2. And let's see, there's 2 areas designated Island Center. One on Orcas is at the intersections of Crow Valley and West Beach roads. The other is on Lopez at the intersections of Dill and Center roads. Another key thing here is that Tier 3 is prohibited in all activity center land use designations. A note on this table, the village commercial and village residential here also applies in Lopez Village. So in Lopez Village, in their village commercial and village residential designations, production and processing would be prohibited. Lopez Village does not have any village industrial. So throughout the UGA on Lopez there, no production or processing would be allowed. There's also a couple of footnotes to this table. Footnote 13 will specify that production and processing in these areas must be conducted indoors. So it must be a fully enclosed and secured structure. And this is to help offset the odor and visual impacts from the state required security features. Footnote 14 requires that the operation not exceed the grow capacity licensed by the state. And footnote 15 clarifies that Hamlet Industrial refers to Deer Harbor industrial designations and establishes that production and processing is prohibited in Olga Hamlet, which doesn't have any Hamlet Industrial designation.
And Adam, you don't have 15 in the table anywhere.
It is, I'll go back. So I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but on marijuana production and processing tiers 1 and 2, I don't know why 15 isn't on the slide here, but in the ordinance, it should have 15 there in addition to 13 and 14.
So Adam, your desktop is not being shared. At least I don't see it at this point.
I don't either.
And the hard copy I'm looking at does not have 15 in tiers 1 and 2 row. So.
Okay, I will note that and make sure that that's.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, let me get my desktop to show.
Oops. Here. Yep. That's right. 15 is actually. No, wait a minute. Oh, no, that's a different table with a different footnote. Okay.
Okay. So if you see on Hamlet here on the slide, there's a footnote 15. So I'll make sure that that's in the draft ordinance too.
Okay. Please. Thank you.
Hey, Adam. This is Jamie.
Yes.
I find this confusing. The activity center is never mentioned anywhere, and except under your description in section 2. And isn't Olga an activity center or a hamlet, and how come they're excluded?
Olga, in their land use designations, they don't have an Olga Hamlet industrial. They have an Olga Hamlet commercial and an Olga Hamlet residential. And so they're specified, the footnote is to clarify that Olga Hamlet it won't be allowed in the Olga Hamlet.
Why haven't you listed Lopez Village that way? That's what I'm saying is confusing, is this isn't consistent the way.
Sure. So perhaps clarify in the footnote also that, clarify in one of the footnotes that Lopez Village is included with the village commercial.
Yeah, and then you've got East Sound because you've corrected East Sound as a UGA, but now Lopez Village is a UGA, and you're treating it as a hamlet or activity center. So the clarity that way would help.
Okay. Yeah, I think when I think when Linda was preparing this ordinance initially, the intention was to keep it our code changes minimal, and so we're trying to get there with this table. But I'll check on that and make sure that
that's fine with me. It's just fine with me. Let's just be consistent how we go through the document.
Okay, I will make sure that that's in there and more clear, and we can. The next draft will make sure that's clear. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So Section 3 of the proposed ordinance amends the land use tables for rural, resource, and special land use designations. It proposes that tiers 1 and 2 be allowed by conditional use permit in the rural general use, rural farm forest, rural industrial, and agricultural resource land. And then here in this table 2, tier 3 is prohibited in all rural, resource, and special land use designations. There's a few more footnotes to that table that will be added. Footnote 15 will allow indoor and outdoor production and processing in rural and resource lands where it's allowed. Footnote 16 requires that the canopy not exceed the tier licensed by the state. 17 limits processing to only take place if it supports an on-site production in rural farm forest and agricultural resource land. And this will prevent the siting of processing operations in farmlands unless they are directly involved in the production of marijuana. Footnote 18 establishes a minimum lot size for production and processing. So for tier 1, the minimum lot size is 1 acre in rural general use and rural industrial. It's 3 acres in rural farm forest and ag resource. And then for tier 2, the minimum lot size is 5 acres in rural general use and rural industrial, and 10 acres in rural farm forest and ag resource. The minimum lot size is intended to keep the production and processing from taking place on some of the very small platted lots where the impacts to neighboring property owners are more likely. So this combined with the setbacks and things we'll see in the performance standards are to cut down on those neighboring impacts.
So Adam.
Oh yeah.
Again, seeing how we dealt with this a while ago, did the Planning Commission make any changes thus far through Section 3?
No, the only changes that the Planning Commission made, and I'll highlight those when we get there, are to Section 7, the performance standards.
So we, the council, decided the last time that Tier 3 was going to be prohibited in rural lands completely.
Correct. Yeah. And so and there's still again after we take public testimony and as you enter deliberations that's still something that you can consider. But for the hearing draft, that was what was agreed to.
Okay.
Section 4 amends the land use tables for the East Sound sub-area. Tiers 1 and 2 are allowed by conditional use permit in East Sound Village Commercial, Service and Light Industrial, Service Park, and Country Corner Commercial. They're prohibited in all other East Sound designations. And this is really to prevent the siting of production and processing from being established in residential and mixed-use areas within the East Sound sub-area. And again, Tier 3 is prohibited in East Sound as well. Section 4 establishes some new footnotes. It's very similar to the other footnotes, and basically stating that you can't grow more than what you're licensed to grow, and that the production and processing must be conducted indoors. And again, that's to help control some of the noise and odor impacts from the proposed use. Now we can take a look at the performance standards. So these will apply to the use and how the use is permitted, and what's allowed to, how it's going to take place. Section 5 is a general performance standards, and these apply to all production and processing throughout the county. These standards require that only one state license can be used per parcel outside of the UGAs. And this will prevent more than one operation from being located on the same parcel. The final certificate of occupancy cannot be issued before the state approves the production licensing or processing licensing. So we're not going to permit a building to do something that they don't have the license for yet. And this section also clarifies that marijuana is not considered an agricultural product. And the key here, the key with that is that it means that marijuana doesn't get some of the same special treatment that other agricultural production gets. So these are things like what's allowed in critical area buffers and the shoreline designation. So that clarity was one of the things that kind of sparked this this whole process.
So Adam?
Finally, Section 5 prohibits the production and processing in residences, critical areas, their buffers, and the shoreline.
Adam?
Yeah.
Mr. Watson has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, so Adam, so you said marijuana is not considered an agricultural product. So you inserted the word considered, and I think that should be there. And is not considered an agricultural product with respect to San Juan County Code Title 18.
Correct. Yeah, we're not regulating it as an agricultural product. It's something else. Yeah.
So I would suggest we add that clarity, because I don't want to get into a debate whether it philosophically is or is not an agricultural product. It's just not an agricultural product relative to our land use regulations.
Okay.
Right? Just to be clear, so that narrows the scope of that statement.
Right. We're not saying anything more than what we're regulating. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, assuming the other council members don't object.
No, that's fine. That's one of the points we had on our list from January.
Yeah.
And remarkably, I do not object.
Section 6 of the proposed ordinance creates standards for siting the production and processing facilities, specifically in rural and agricultural lands. It only allows for indoor production in ag land to take place in structures that were legally existing on the effective date of the ordinance. So prohibiting new structures from being built for the production and processing in ag land. The idea here is that ag land has to be preserved for agricultural product production. And because we're not considering marijuana an agricultural product, we don't want to allow new structures to convert ag land to a non-agricultural product production. This section also requires that both indoor and outdoor production and processing facilities be set back 300 feet from the property lines and 500 feet from existing neighboring residences. And then looking at Section 7, Section 7 establishes the production and processing performance standards that apply in every land use designation. It requires that lighting be directed away from neighboring property owners, critical areas, and public roads. It requires type A landscaping to provide a visual barrier between neighboring properties and the production facility. It requires the state mandated security features be installed prior to occupation. And this section requires that applicants describe the proposed use of hazardous substances, methods, and equipment in the application and on the site plan. So if they're using chemicals in some way to process the marijuana, they have to clearly explain that in their application. Then further, the standards require that applicants muffle the fan noise and provide a list of the measures that they will use to reduce fan noise. And then, let's see here. The applicants also must filter the exhaust air that's coming out of their ventilation system prior to it going into the atmosphere and having odor impacts to the surrounding property owners. And this is one of the areas where the Planning Commission made a recommendation that we require the fan noise muffling system to be designed by a licensed engineer, which we were already going to require that for the odor control system, which is probably going to be the same overall system. So it's just a clarity and consistency thing. Furthermore, for the noise and odor control, there's a list of 12 technologies that can help control that odor. And those come from the some general like best practices research that we did in advance there.
Adam?
And, yes.
Adam? Mr. Hughes has a question for you.
Okay.
Get too far along. I'd like to add another restriction on new section 7. On the lighting issue, we say lighting must be directed away from adjoining properties, critical areas, and public roads. I'd like to also add shoreline.
Okay.
Well, that might be redundant to critical areas. I just think it's important to call out.
Okay.
I mean,
I must have the disease. I thought I just heard Chairman Hughes say he's suggesting an additional regulation.
Yes.
I did, yes.
Let's see here. Other things in section 7 here, in addition to controlling the noise and odor, there's a cap on the traffic impacts that can be generated. So no more than 5 trips per day would be allowed on private roads, and then 6 to 19 trips per day would be allowed on public roads. This section also authorizes the administrator to recommend permit conditions to address those road impacts after consulting with the county engineer. The Planning Commission here recommended striking an example of a condition that would include the installation of road improvements. They were concerned about the impacts that might have on rural character by allowing these new road projects to be required with this development. The change that they made to the proposed draft doesn't substantially change the regulations because that list in subsection I was non-exclusive. It was a such as list. They just wanted to not be throwing it out there that we would be changing the roads necessarily. And even under their recommended change, the administrator is still authorized to recommend permit conditions based on what the county engineer recommends after consulting with him or her. So here's again, you can see the strikeout and underline of the Planning Commission's recommendation for this provision. They also require that the noise system be designed by a licensed engineer. I suppose I already touched on that. And that's what the change to the road impacts. We received 4 public comments during the comment period. the guards live next to a production facility that grows in hoop houses, which would not be included in our current. We require a rigid, opaque structure, which would not include hoop houses in any indoor production. They're concerned about expansion of the existing operation for the noise and odor impacts. And then the other three comments were in support of the proposed, two of the comments were in support of the proposed regulations. And there was one comment in favor of a ban on marijuana production and processing in general. For the public, if they have comments.
Adam?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Back a page. There you go. So for the guards, I mean, this is out in rural, is it not?
It is, yeah.
So would not the hoop structures be equivalent to a outdoor grow operation?
It would, yeah. So there's again, there's some potential odor impacts from outdoor because it's not a controlled environment.
Exactly.
And I think that was one of the things that we struggled with in this process is how much do we want to allow versus what are the impacts of that?
And we're allowing outdoor grow operations in rural land uses, correct?
Correct. There is the minimum lot size and some of the setbacks will help with that, but there's only so much you can do if you don't have it enclosed.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to be clear.
Sure. And let's see here. As I mentioned, we're meeting our benchmarks for this for the work plan that was adopted with the original moratorium. We're looking at, we're on track. We have a public hearing scheduled for August 25th, which would keep us on track to adopt new regulations before the moratorium comes up. That, if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to take those at this time.
This is Jamie. I don't have any other questions, but thank you, Adam. I did find my yellow page with all our notes on it from January, and this hits everything. And I know it also seemed to, once I got into it, it's consistent with all our discussions that we've had along the way. So thank
Great.
you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Watson.
No questions from Mr. Watson.
And to follow up on Mr. Stevens' earlier comment, just for the record, I'd like to point out that I did not object to one thing during this discussion.
I object.
Alrighty, thank you. I look forward to moving forward with this. I appreciate all of the community input, staff time, and council's dedication to providing appropriate regulations regarding marijuana in San Juan County. So thank you very much. Is there anything else for staff, council?
So our public hearing is already scheduled?
It is for the 25th.
Right, okay.
All right. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Moving on to council member updates. Mr. Watson.
Well, so the first one I'd like to bring up is I think we all received email from Lisa Henderson, our county clerk, asking about our budget reduction, her budget reduction proposal, and the result that it would, or the fact that it would result in a reduction in force, and whether that was the council's intention or not.
That was never my intention, but
I was thinking it was a consolidation, that it was a, again, eliminating the position, but yet the person was, merged with multiple responsibilities kind of deal.
That's what I thought. I mean, I guess I would have a little difficulty because they made the proposal and we accepted it.
Right. But I think Ms. Henderson's, sort of raising the flag saying, well, but you said you didn't want to do a reduction in force. So maybe she was concerned that we were confused.
Mr. Watson, so what are you proposing? I mean, I agree with what you said. That was never, in my mind, my intention to have a person be laid off at this point. And if that is the case, then maybe we should have another discussion regarding that. Is that what you're getting to?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. And because I think it being a reduction in force was an unintended consequence in my mind. So if that's the case, then maybe we should sit down with Ms. Henderson again and go over that. And obviously, if we don't do that, and that would be necessary to accomplish the budget reduction, then obviously we're in effect reversing our budget reduction decision relative to her department.
Mr. Stevens, what are your thoughts?
Mike, what do you think?
Thank you, Jamie. Let me talk while you buy yourself time. Yeah, so Lisa copied me on her email, and I went back and looked at her original submittal, and I can see where the confusion was, because we had a lot of proposals to reduce FTEs, and I think that's how we all took it, as a reduction in FTE and not an elimination of one. You know, if it puts the squeeze on her 5% exercise, okay, so maybe we don't resolve this today, but we could ask the auditor to we know what the budget looks like without that in there, so maybe that can be an alternative, and that could be added back in so that person or that position isn't riffed. So you'd have both versions to look at, because we have a lot more budget discussion, as you know, next week and the following week on the budget amendment.
So I would suggest, if council is okay with this, that we provide the clerk some time in front of council on the 25th, and we can have that discussion with her at that point, and we'll put it maybe before the budget discussion.
I think we want to know what the dollar amount is. I don't know if I don't have the materials in front of me, but let's identify what the dollar amount is that we're talking about. I think it's relatively small.
Right. Good. So, Mike, you can work with Mylene to do that, and then I agree with Rick that we can put it on next week's agenda and resolve it at that point.
Okay.
Mr. Stevens, are you okay with that? We can defer to Mike.
That's good for me.
Great.
All right, thank you. So Ingrid, we're going to add, tentatively have a budget discussion with Lisa Henderson, the clerk, prior to the budget discussion with the auditor.
We are, so that would be before the public hearing?
So let's do it after the public hearing, because we're not going to, is my understanding, we're not going to actually have that discussion. Yeah,
yes, it won't be till the 25th that you take action.
So let's just put it on the 18th, so after the public hearing for the budget.
Got it.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. My other question was, again, council has been copied on the meeting notices discussion for Swiss, which is Snohomish, Whatcom Island, Skagit, San Juan County Regional Meeting. You know, are we all three of us participating, or are we designating a representative to participate in that?
So let me, if I can jump in for a second. So I've been trying to forward these messages to, I've tried to get them to Jamie, maybe I haven't done a very good job, or to Mike. So Swiss it's the public park people in the different counties. I've attended a few of the meetings because I wasn't sure who else could do it. I'm more than willing to hand over the baton, and I've told them on several occasions that it'll probably be someone else. But it's a really good group of park directors talking about how they can help fund their parks and what they're doing. So I would recommend either Mr. Thomas or Toby or Jennifer or Mr. Stevens take the baton from me.
When's the next meeting? I know I got the email. I just
yeah, I don't remember. I'll get it to you. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I've been trying to forward and punt it off every time, and it comes up in my Zoom calendar, so I just attend. But I would really like someone else who's a little bit more vested in it than I am at this point to help, if that's possible.
So I'm happy to take a look at this. I just need to get up to speed on what it is.
Yeah.
And how to affect us.
I'll take it off your hands.
Okay, great, thank you. And I mentioned that I figured it would be you that would be doing it. It's with a lobbyist for parks, and then these park directors from the different jurisdictions. It's actually been a really interesting meeting. They've talked each time they talk a little bit about what they're doing in COVID, how they're trying to figure out and deal with budget shortfalls. So I think it'll be really beneficial for the work that you're doing with parks, Jamie.
Okay.
And I have tried to forward the request or for someone else to do it for the last 2 meetings. Just maybe I didn't do a very good job of that, but anyway, thank you. I think it's a good group, and again, it continues down that path that Bill's been leading on our regional, and both Jamie and Bill have been working on getting us in different subjects to work as a region together. So I think that's really important. Thank you.
Great. All right. I just wanted clarity because, I saw the email and it's like, am I involved or am I not? So that's good. That was basically my updates.
Ms. Stevens?
I don't have much to update. And I did notice, I did take our health department's recommendation and took a few days off last week and went out on the boat. And I also had talked with Chris Godotti from State Parks, and he said visitation is way off. There are, though, a lot of boats that are just hanging out, and they aren't like in a mad dash out on all the trails or anything else. They're just hanging out. I hiked out to Turnpoint Lighthouse and passed like 6 people, and that was it. And when I went into the park between Reed and Prevost Harbor, I probably ran into 10 people, but that's only because that's where the bathroom is. So, interesting what we perceive and what's actually happening. Other than that, I'm on my way to a WASEC executive committee meeting, and there's only like 4 of us or 5 of us, so be social distancing. It's a big trek. First time in 5 months. I found myself going a lot slower than the speed limit because I'm not used to traffic.
That's awesome.
And Jamie, it's nice to look through your steering wheel at you. Thank you.
I couldn't get my computer to connect, so.
It's a good look. You're positioned right in the right place. It's perfect. All righty, thank you. And real quick, so the 2 things I've been working on in transportation, again, as I've been saying every week, I apologize for Washington State Ferry's poor performance week after week. Every day, every ferry seems to be late no matter what. They've added a few new crew folks, and they're trying to look at a modified Friday schedule for the whole week for winter, but it has been sort of one frustrating call after another every time. And trust me, Jim Corman, FAC chair, and myself probably speak to Mr. Vizina from ferries every day, and the answer is kind of the same. So, we're hoping, I think WashDOT has put out an ultimatum, or at least an ultimatum is harsh of a word, has suggested that people that went home due to COVID should maybe come back to work, so that hopefully could help fill some crews. And hopefully we'll be able to, as ridership is slowly increasing, we're still off about 40% versus summer ridership. But, it's really discouraging. A couple weeks ago, I think they left 200 reservations off the last 2 sailings on a Friday night for Lopez and Orcas because they were short 1 crew person. So our FAC and the local ferries have been trying to figure out how to communicate better in advance so we can have people there, so someone who has a reservation doesn't have to be turned around to find a hotel for the next day. So anyway, I apologize for that. I've been in a few meetings on the privatization task force proviso that the state put together with Victoria Compton, and There's a overwhelming sentiment to preserve the route, but we're trying to be neutral and objective to provide information back to the Transportation Committee on those findings. Also, I've had a first meeting with WASAC on transportation as we prep for the future of transportation and to try to figure out how we can generate revenue that will be required for the next big transportation bill, which could take a couple years. So there's a lot of concern in the transportation industry of lack of funding due to I-976 and gas tax receipts, as we're seeing the MVAT and gas tax numbers decline quite significantly. So carbon seems to be one of the things that the legislature and some jurisdictions may support moving forward. And I will keep you posted on that as we move on. So I don't have anything else. Any question regarding ferries or transportation?
This is Jamie. I failed to thank council for waiting for me because I was in line for the 640 ferry and it overloaded. And then, like as I had expressed to the chair, I don't know how a ferry gets behind 45 minutes by 8 o'clock in the morning. But thank you for waiting, and I apologize that I was late.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate you being here. And the only explanation I can give you, Jamie, and I probably said this 100 times to 100 different people, is that they build a schedule in the wintertime based on 50% capacity, and when it's full capacity, they can't turn boats around in 25 minutes, which leads to, hey, let's just change the schedule to make it more accurate, which unfortunately, the winter schedule gets rid of one crew shift, and so you cannot schedule overtime. They can have overtime by being late all day every day, but they can't schedule it. So you'd think if you were running it like a business, you would just schedule a little bit of overtime and you would have less overtime because you would be more on time. But what do I know? Anyway, thank you very much. Have a great day. I appreciate Mr. Thomas, do you have any comments?
No, I look forward to your bridge proposal. A couple things. We have the...
It's a tunnel, Mike. It's a tunnel.
Hey, man, there's that machine sitting in Seattle somewhere. Hey, we have the kickoff meeting for the radio system on Wednesday, so that's good. And then really it's a lot of detail and a lot of discussions with staff. We've proposing to cut nearly $1 million out of the current year, so that creates a lot of questions and different efforts and different relationships on how to continue to run the organization. So that's pretty much occupying my time, plus the budget. That's it.
All right, Ingrid, anything?
I don't. Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
All right, great. So we're going to go into a closed session to discuss matters pertaining to collective bargaining pursuant to RCW 42.30.144B. Mike, 30 minutes and no action will be taken?
We're going to do it in 20 minutes because Jamie's been held captive in his own car, and I want to be sensitive to that.
All right, so we will go into this closed session until 12:20. No action will be taken, and we will come out and be adjourned. Thank you very much. Be safe, be healthy. Thank you.
Ciao.